What's going on? I just briefly wanted to talk about the most ecological lifestyle. When we talk with vegans about health, about ethics, about ecology, and they will very quickly they argue that their diet, their lifestyle is ecologically superior, it's healthfully superior, and it's also in an ethical way superior. Now, I already explained why this is actually not the case in terms of health and ethics. In this video, I'm going to explain why it is actually not the case in terms of ecology. The vegan diet is definitely not the most ecological lifestyle, the vegan lifestyle, I should say. And this is very simply explained. So let's get into it. When we have a field of wheat, let's say, okay, we have a field of wheat, and this wheat is grown for human consumption. Let's argue it's grown for human consumption. Now, there's one very important point which a lot of people forget when it comes to agriculture, especially modern agriculture, and that is how is this field of wheat fertilized? How is this field of wheat fertilized? Why does where do the minerals come from that this wheat needs to grow? Where do the nitrates come from? Where does all this stuff come from? Also wheat, it's a living organism. It needs certain chemical compounds, certain organic compounds, and certain non-organic compounds to grow, to build up its substance. One major part of that is, of course, CO2, which it needs for building its carbon construct, because it is a plant, simply. But, there's also other stuff that needs to be there, nitrates especially. Now, the solution, at least if you're looking at a more or less traditional farmer, will be manure. Manure from animals, okay? So we see here a phenomenon. We basically take a piece of land, usually it's forest. First of all, we clear the forest to make it available for growing wheat. Now, with the forest, we not only clear away the trees, but we also clear away the fauna, meaning the animal parts of this living kingdom here, okay? We also clear them away. Now, in a forest, everything is in balance, the plants produce enough biological matter for the animals to eat, and the animals produce enough manure for the plants to grow again. So as you can see, this is a complete cycle. Now when we remove the trees and the animals and replace the trees, so to say, with wheat, we have a little bit of a problem here, because wheat monocultures, as we have them today, are very unnatural. And not as many animals can live in these wheat monocultures to, still fertilize them. So what we're having here with time is that the wheat, over time, depletes the soil of certain minerals, of certain nutrients. So what must occur here? Somewhere else, animals must be held in a greater density than they are held in that original forest, at least. And this overproduction of manure must then be transported to our little wheat field to fertilize the wheat. Now, of course, this is not always the case. The harsh reality is that a lot of this fertilizer is actually not manure from animals, as it should be, but rather is chemically produced fertilizer, which means that we have the phenomenon that these wheat fields actually have extreme greenhouse gas emissions. They cost a lot of energy, they cost a lot of oil, okay, they cost a lot of fuel to produce these chemical fertilizers, and also to transport them to where they are needed, which are these fields. So we see here, we remove the animals from an ecological cycle, from an ecological balance, and we bring the land out of balance, because, again, the wheat can grow only so long until the soil is depleted. And the next thing that sets in from there is the desertification, The land is going to dry out, it's going to wash away, the rain is going to wash away the topsoil, and then what we have left is essentially a desert. So only these things can only exist together, okay? Plants need animals, animals need plants. Now, what vegans will now argue is that, yeah, in fact, all of these wheat fields are actually grown to feed animals, you know? And they are correct. They are correct. I don't know how many percent, but I'm sure more of half of the percent of wheat and corn are actually grown to feed animals in feedlots, and the manure is then collected and, you know, transported back to the fields. And all of this is just an ecological disaster because we have to transport everything around, and, you know, these animals are held in you know, horrible conditions. They are all sick because they get fed grains, which is not what they originally should eat. You know, I mean, an animal like a cow should eat grass. All right, it's a ruminant. The stomach of this cow is best suited for grass, so it should eat that. Not I mean, you know, all these wheat and corn, they are parts of the grass family as well, but they should actually eat the cellulose, you know, the green juicy cellulose from fresh little grass stalks, and not the actual grains, you know, the reproductive organs of these grasses. The grains, again, I've talked about this previously, are much more suited for birds. Birds are actually those guys which have an aggressive enough stomach tract to break down the anti-nutrients from these grains, you know, from their reproductive organs. But anyway, so much for that. So we're running into a problem here, as you can see, because even if you are, let's call it, an ecological meat eater, and you source your meat from only grass-fed cows, then this comes pretty close to a relatively ecological lifestyle, because, you know, these cows eat what they are supposed to eat. They eat grass, that's what they are designed for, and it's still an ecological lifestyle. You know, it's still a circle here. You know, the cows eat the grass, they poo on the grass, and this poo is again used to fertilize the grass, and everything works fine. However, if everybody would eat grass-fed meat, then we would soon enough not have any forest around anymore, because you need to clear forest to have these grasslands. And this is just very visible when you take a look at the South Americas, where this is done big time. Okay, they are in Argentina and also in Mexico, clearing rainforests en masse because they just simply want to have free grasslands for their cows to graze on. All right, so this, again, as we can see, is at the end of the day not ecologically sustainable. So what is the root problem here? You know, if you're a vegan, you will argue, well, okay, but at least I consume a lot less of this grown wheat that is grown in this wheat field, you know, than compared to a meat eater who consumes much more of this grain, because, you know, when you feed the grains to the cow, so and so many calories are actually lost, and this is very correct. You know, as a vegan, you use up a lot less of that grain. However, that grain still needs to be manured, it still needs to be fertilized, and you are still running into problems here because you remove the animals from the land. You know, I hope that's clear now, essentially. So all that this vegan trend does in an ecological way is it delays the point where shit hits the fan, to be quite frank here with you, okay? Because it reduces the amount of grain that you need as a human for the next period of time, of course at the cost of your health, by the way, because, yeah, again, we are much more suited to eat meat than grains, but anyway. So the end of this can be not a solution, a really long-term solution, because, you know, the population is still growing. The population is still growing, and in fact, there are already societies which have made the step that their lower-ranked people eat more grains so that the higher ranked people can have more meats, because otherwise it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work to feed those meats, those high quality nutrients to everybody in the society, simply because the society is too big. We see this as a result of civilization. This is just what happens if you civilize a human strain, so to say, a human geographical entity too much. All right, so we have to clear a lot of forest. We have to grow a lot of grains for these people. Some of the grains are, used to feed animals for some richer people, and that's essentially what happens, However, the nature, ecology suffers, of course, because we have to replace those forests which are in balance, but only provide so much of food for, human hunter-gatherers, theoretically, that they have to be cleared. It's not enough to feed a civilization. And this already brings me to the final point, and that is the most ecological lifestyle. The most ecological lifestyle is the human hunter-gatherer. And this is how we lived, the last 100,000 years to the previous, 10,000 years. And from there on, everything changed. We settled. We started to hunt the deers around the settlements, probably until the deers are basically gone. We're basically gone extinct. And from there on, we started to produce grains to be able to stay at one place a little bit longer. And from there, it's going on. The grains sustained more calories to produce more people. And then more people needed even more calories. The natural foods become scarce. And all this, is kind of a chain reaction which only had to lead to agriculture, to modern agriculture and more modern society, modern civilization. That doesn't mean that this is any good. It just is. It's just what it is. That's just the way it is. So the ecological lifestyle, the most ecological lifestyle, is actually to live in the original forest and hunt those deers that are around with your skill. Takes an incredible amount of skill, by the way, which means that these humans who are at work here have to be of a really high quality. They have to have sharp eyes, they have to have sharp ears, they have to, have a good night vision. They have to be quick, they have to be able to run, they have to be able to aim an arrow, and all these things, which people are not able to do any longer nowadays, because they don't have to, because they have civilization. So this is another way how you can see how civilization going on for too long degenerates a people over time. Of course, this is very visible here nowadays as well. I've talked about this previously. So yeah, again, most ecological lifestyles, still living in hunter-gatherer times, and hunt only what the forest provides for you, which is 1 or 2 deers maybe per week or something, for your family. And that's basically it. And then you still have competition, because there's also the big bad wolf out there, and the big bad bear, and all these guys, these are predators as well, and they want their food as well. So you got competition here. As you can see, this is something that it provides a lot less humans, provides only a very few humans actually, but a very high quality of humans. And this is how, quality of humans really gets diluted here in a literal sense, if we let civilization take its course, It's really fascinating actually when you think about it. So I hope that was informational. Bye.